Hey, what's up, Armaholics? I'm Swiss Maverick and I'm back with an Arma 2 tutorial. A long time since I last played this game, at least 3 months. I haven't touched it ever since the Arma 3 Alpha came out. But I received a lot of comments on my sniper tutorial for Arma 2 A.C.E, and apparently a few changes have been made by the developers. So I figured I'm gonna check it out myself and see what all the fuss is about. The main changes I came across is the whole rifle adjustment or the scope adjustment. That's quite different, and that's what I'm going to re-explain here. So even though this is basically an update on the first tutorial I made, I'm going to re-explain the whole thing from scratch. So if you're new to A.C.E and if you just get started with the whole thing, you don't necessarily have to watch both videos. So you can watch this one and you should be good to go. Quick word on the mission, because if I don't mention it here, I'm going to get a lot of comments that are not really related to the video about what map I'm playing on and what units I'm using. The map is Dingor. It's the desert version of Lingor that you might know, and the units are US Navy SEALs, available on Armaholic, other Arma forums, or also downloadable on Play-with-6. That being said, let's kick off with the tutorial. Before I start lining up some targets, I'm gonna introduce you to the gear, because a few items are really important for sniping in A.C.E. I'm gonna start with an M110 sniper rifle and engage a target at semi-long range, which is about 500 meters away. This rifle uses the 7.62mm caliber and is effective up to about 1000 meters. To take accurate shots, it's important to measure the range, and I'm going to use the Vector 21B Night for this. Not only bullet drop but also wind will affect the projectile on its way to target, so I use a Kestrel to measure the wind and adjust my calculations. Earplugs are not really necessary with this small rifle, but if you shoot in 50 cal, I do advise you to use them. Hey Air Force guys, go play somewhere else. Noisy bitches. Okay, as I mentioned, earplugs optional, but you should always carry them, that's my advice. Safety goggles as well, especially if you're working with helicopters, then they're really necessary. Tactical glasses, you can use them. They will give you a yellow filter over your vision, which will change the contrast, and this might help you acquiring targets. Also here, completely optional. Try them out if you like them, use them. If not, just don't. Those items can be found in several ammo boxes that you can place in the mission editor, or you can use a scripted ammo box or scripted gear just on your unit. There are multiple ways to do it. I have tutorials about all that on my channel. Alright, let's get into the process of acquiring a target, measuring the range, wind, adjust the rifle or the scope, and then engage the target. I've set up 2 practice targets, so the first one is about 500 meters away, the second one about 1200. I marked them with those red arrow thingies, so it's going to be easier for me to spot them. It's not realistic, but after all, this is a tutorial on a sniper school. To turn on the vector, I have to press R on my keyboard. The number that appears indicates that the vector is turned on, and that's actually your direction of view. On default it's set to 360 degrees, but if you hit Alt and R, you can change to azimuth, which is 6400 mils for a complete circle. This way you can get a very precise heading. Not really important in sniping, but if you're working with mortars or other artillery, it's definitely necessary. To actually measure the range, you have to hit the left mouse button, so basically the fire button. This will send out a laser beam that will reflect from wherever you're looking at, and then it's going to tell you the distance. In this case, 515 meters is the range to this target. That range value is important for further calculation, so you can memorize it or write it down. After we've got the range, we have to measure the wind, which is the sideways deflection. To do that, I open my A.C.E self-interaction menu, hit Kestrel, and then that's what should appear. To start a calculation process, I have to press the middle button or the center button, and you see a few informations are displayed right here. Heading north 9 degrees. The left button will get me to the crosswind, which is the value that is really important right now, 1 meter per second. This value alone is not enough though. We don't know in which direction the wind is actually blowing. To find that out, I hit Shift and K on my keyboard, and in the top left corner this arrow appears. This is the A.C.E wind indicator that will tell us in which direction the wind is blowing, and it will change the color depending on the strength of the wind. So white is just a fall breeze, and red would be really strong wind. But this feature just gives us a rough idea about the wind. It's not enough for sniping. That's why we're using the cache tool to get an accurate number. If I click on the left button on the cache tool again, I will get to headwind. This will tell us if we get wind coming from the front or from the back. You can also use the headwind value in your calculations, but unless it's like really strong wind, it's not that important. Personally, I like to repeat the calculation process with the cache tool about 2 or 3 times to see if the wind is stable or if it's changing. To adjust the scope, I have to use the range tables. I bring them up by clicking Shift and V. This is the part that actually has changed from the old version and therefore created confusion with the viewers of my first video. Now the range tables look like a notepad, but you still get the same information on it. On the left side is the range. For this rifle it goes from 100 to 1000 meters. If you use a 12.7mm, so a 50 cal sniper rifle, it usually goes up to about 2000 meters. The values in the middle column are used to adjust for bullet drop, so basically for the range that we have measured, and the values on the right side will adjust for the wind deflection. Alright, let's start to figure out how much we have to adjust our scope. Before I had measured a range of 515 meters, so it's not possible to go that accurate here with the scope adjustment, so you have to roughly figure out what value you have to take. To adjust for 500 meters I have to go 9 clicks up. To do that I need to be zoomed out of my rifle, and then I use the up arrow key on my keyboard. Just tap it and you see in the top left corner the information. You click up until you reach 9. This should adjust for the bullet drop that comes from the gravity that we have on our planet. For the wind it's kind of similar. You see the information, you go to your range 500, and then you get this value 3.9. Here what is important that is pretty much missing on this notepad, and it's like really vital information, is that those values on there are for 4 meters per second. On the old range tables you had this information. Here it's missing. If you don't know for what strength this value stands for, you cannot calculate, and that's, in my opinion, a bug here in this version. So I'm telling you now, I've tested it out and it is still 4 meters per second. You could obviously grab a calculator and calculate all this stuff on there to receive a super accurate result, but in the end the scope adjustment is limited to steps of about 0.25 or something. So even though if you have a super accurate value, you cannot adjust the scope as accurate as you might want to. That's why it's not really necessary. You can work with numbers that are easier for you to calculate. The wind deflection for a shot at 500 meters would be 3.9 at 4 meters per second wind strength. Before we measured 1 meter per second wind strength, so I'm gonna use the value 4 instead of 3.9, divided by 4. So I'm gonna get the result for 1 meter per second wind, and this will be 1. Now it's important to correct in the right direction. To do that I use the A.C.E wind indicator again. Shift K on your keyboard should bring up this arrow that tells you if the wind is coming from left to right or right to left. Because if you adjust the wrong way, the shot will be even more off target. Alright, we get wind from left to right. This means I will have to adjust to the left. The flight pattern of the bullet will have to go further to the left at the beginning, and then the wind deflection will pretty much bring it back on track to hit its target at a range of 500 meters. To adjust the scope I use the left and right arrow key on my keyboard. Also here I have to be zoomed out of the scope to do that. Now we're ready to take the shot. Hit shift and space to deploy your bipod for stable aiming. Aim at your target, shoot. Right on the money. This was super accurate, right in the chest. Let's go for a headshot. On target. Doesn't get any better than that. Okay, you might say, well, that was pretty easy, 500 meters. Yeah, you're right, 500 meters is not that far. And also the other conditions were pretty good for sniping, so it wasn't that difficult. To raise the bar a bit, I'm gonna grab a heavy-duty sniper rifle and then shoot at the target that is a bit further away. But in the end, this is still a tutorial and is supposed to show you how the whole process works and not to show off with some really difficult sniper shots. I'm just saying this here because in the first video I got pretty much hater comments for not using proper sniper tactics, not using a spotter. Those people really did not get the point of the video. Alright, let's get back to topic. I'm using the TAC 50 sniper rifle. It's a rifle that is exclusively available in A.C.E, one of my absolute favorite weapons ever in Arma 2. I'm gonna shoot at a infantry pop-up target that is 1180 meters away, and on a range like that the calculations we have seen before become more and more important. I got my range. Let's have a look at the wind. The whole process does not change no matter what rifle you're using. You still have to measure the range, wind, do the calculations, adjust the scope, and then fire. So crosswind is still the same, 1 meter per second. Headwind is just minimal, pretty much nothing, so we don't have to pay attention to that. The range tables for the TAC 50 look quite different, as you see, and you even got the scroll bar on the side. You get values up to 2000 meters, so that's quite far. To get an accurate value for the range, I'm gonna use something between 1100 and 1200 meters, so between 24 and 29.25 clicks on my scope. Even though the range was 1180 meters, I'm gonna use the rough number 30 for 1200 meters. This will make the whole calculating a lot easier, and I'm still gonna be able to hit my target. I'm gonna go with 30 for 1200 meters. This gives me a difference from 24 to 30 of 6. Now I'm gonna use 80% of 6, which is 4.8, and add this value to the 24 clicks we already have for 1100 meters. So the pretty accurate value for 1180 meters is 28.8. To adjust the range, I use the up and down arrows on my keyboard until I reach 28.8. I'm gonna have to adjust my scope to 28.75 because that's the closest I can get to this value. I know it sounds kind of complicated, but once you figure out how to do it, how the process works, it's not that hard actually. Let's have a look at the wind. Wind for this range is somewhere between 5 and 5.7. Also here I'm gonna try to figure out those 80%. So I'm gonna use a value of 6. The difference between 5 and 6, 80% of that would be 0.8. I'm gonna add those 0.8 to the number 5, the value for 1100 meters, and I end up with 5.8. 5.8 would be the wind deflection for 4 meters per second wind strength. We just have 1 meters, so I divide this value by 4 and I'll end up with 1.45. And that's what I have to adjust on my scope. Use Shift K again to open the A.C.E wind indicator to see where the wind is coming from, so you can adjust towards that wind. As I mentioned before, I usually use the rough numbers to make the calculations easier, so I can do them in my head. If you want to go full frontal on the accuracy with the calculations, you can obviously do that, but you're probably gonna need a calculator. In the end, it doesn't really matter though, because personally I make good experience with the rough numbers and I'm gonna stick to that. Let's take the shot. Hit. And another one. You can see it takes the bullet a few seconds to get to target, and that's something you really have to be aware of if you're shooting at long range. And especially shooting at a moving target requires quite some experience and skills. And again, 4 hits in a row. Let's go for the last one. There you go. Alright, fellow snipers, I think we're done here. I hope this updated version of my A.C.E sniper tutorial clears up the problems you might have encountered with the new version of the Advanced Combat Environment mod. There are a lot more A.C.E tutorials on my channel. Feel free to check them out. I made them more than a year ago, so it's very well possible that also other stuff next to the sniping might be slightly outdated. Nevertheless, I'm not gonna do updates on all those videos because I'm just waiting for Arma 3 and especially for the A.C.E mod for the new game. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like this video if you were able to benefit from it, or if you're just having a good time watching it. I'll share it with your friends, your Arma community or whatever. Add it to your favorites. Please head over to my channel, check out all the cool content I have on there, and subscribe. Like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter. I'm Swiss Maverick. Catch you soon. Hey, what's up, Armaholics? I'm Swiss Maverick and I'm back with an Arma 2 tutorial. A long time since I last played this game, at least 3 months. I haven't touched it ever since the Arma 3 Alpha came out. But I received Arma forums were also downloadable on Play with 6. That being said, let's kick off with the tutorial. Before I start lining up some targets, I'm gonna introduce you to the gear because a few items are really important for sniping in A.C.E. I'm gonna start with an M110 sniper rifle and engage a target at semi-long range, which is about 500 meters away. This rifle uses the 7.62mm caliber and is effective up to about 1000 meters. To take accurate shots, it's important to measure the range, and I'm going to use the Vector 21B Night for this. Not only bullet drop but also wind will affect the projectile on its way to target, so I use a Kestrel to measure the wind and adjust my calculations. Earplugs are not really necessary with this small rifle, but if you shoot in 50 cal, I do advise you to use them. You just get started with the whole thing. You don't necessarily have to watch both videos, so you can watch this one and you should be good to go. Quick word on the mission, because if I don't mention it here, I'm gonna get a lot of comments that are not really related to the video about what map I'm playing on and what units I'm using. The map is Dingor. It's the desert version of Lingor that you might know, and the units are US Navy SEALs, available on Armaholic other end. I received a lot of comments on my sniper tutorial for Arma 2 A.C.E, and apparently a few changes have been made by the developers, so I figured I'm gonna check it out myself and see what all the fuss is about. The main changes I came across is the whole rifle adjustment or the scope adjustment. That's quite different, and that's what I'm gonna re-explain here. So even though this is basically an update on the first tutorial I made, I'm gonna re-explain the whole thing from scratch, so if you're new to A.C.E and if you